silence is a double-edged sword. On one end, silence is the tranquility we need in a noisy world. In the other, being silent upon witnessing oppression is being complicit to tyranny. But what happens when silence is used as a weapon to end oppression and start the revolution? See, the revolution will not be televised. And Corazon once showed us that the revolution will neither be heard, because a true revolution happens in silence. So to understand why we all missed that Law has always been a revolutionary, we must understand that real G's move in silence. But let's not act as if we didn't know what Law was. At the back of our minds, we knew he wasn't just a simple pirate. We couldn't quite put our fingers on it, but we knew. We knew that it's suspicious that he never mentioned any dreams of being Pirate King. We knew it was weird that he saved Luffy in Marineford for seemingly no reason. We knew it was suspicious how he didn't even have a traditional pirate ship, but rather a submarine. Why does Law use a submarine? Aren't pirates supposed to be boastful with their boats and flaunt their flags? It's as if he's going underwater to go under the radar, as if he's hiding something, as if he's purposely moving in silence. The idea that Law is an undercover revolutionary is hard to grasp at first, but just consider this for a second. Law moves like an undercover agent. We barely know anything about his motivations or his end goal. At first, we thought it was simply to take out Doflamingo, but what motives does he have to take down Kaido and Big Mom right after? He doesn't seem to be interested in competing for Pirate King, because someone gunning for Pirate King wouldn't work alongside a rival like Luffy for so long. If there's anything we do understand about Law, is that he's interested in learning about the Void Century and the Will of D. But what sort of pirate is actually interested in learning about past history? Even Luffy doesn't care about the Void Century nor the Will of D. So what exactly is Law's end goal if not to be Pirate King? The question got me thinking, perhaps Law doesn't have any end goal that a normal pirate would have, which leads me to the possibility that perhaps Law is not a normal pirate, or he may not be a pirate at all. Rather, his pirate career is a mask to hide his true allegiances. See, Law moves more like an undercover agent using piracy as a means to an end, especially when you consider that his mentor Corazon was an undercover agent masquerading as Doflamingo's henchman. So how far-fetched would it be to say that Law is following in Corazon's footsteps as he's moving in silence undercover? But undercover for who exactly? Can't be the Navy, because he wouldn't be so interested in the Void Century. So he's not a pirate, neither is he a marine. Then that leads us down to one other faction. See, I have a theory that Law is an undercover revolutionary this whole time. To go even further, I believe that Law is the hidden blade of Monkey D. Dragon, insofar that they are working closely to set the stage for the revolution behind the scenes. Stick around for the whole theory, and I'll prove why Law is one of the most important characters towards kickstarting the greatest revolution in One Piece history. And if you stick around long enough, I'll show you how Law is the catalyst for us seeing Monkey D. Dragon's first display of strength throughout the whole story. But before we begin, make sure to like the video and comment on your thoughts so far. And if you've been watching my theories and haven't subscribed yet, don't be afraid to click that subscribe button and join the Middleway family. Let's shoot for 3,000 likes with this one, because this very well may be the greatest One Piece theory you've ever heard. Okay, let's dive in. See, to understand Law's revolutionary spirit, we must ask ourselves, what is Law's future relevance to the story, and what are his overall motivations? In the current story, it's not looking too good for him at all. But to predict his questionable future, we have to look first into his past, as his past is the biggest clue we have about why exactly he has chosen to be a revolutionary. See, Law was born in a very prosperous town called Flevance. Flevance was a town that profited off a substance called white lead. The people of Flevance one day discovered this type of lead underground and took advantage of its many beneficial usages. They made utensils, paint, cosmetics, and even weapons out of this white lead. This product made the whole country rich and was desired all over the world for its beneficial property. Until one day, it was discovered that that white lead was inherently poisonous, and that led to the downfall of Law's whole country. This horrifying turn of events turned Flevance, a once prosperous white town, into a desolate white town. And just like that, Law's whole town and family became ridden with disease that eventually killed them, leaving Law as the only survivor. Now, why am I going over this very sad and unfortunate backstory, and why does Flevance matter now? See, this is where Law's revolutionary ideals can be traced back because of a very important piece of this backstory that is often overlooked. In this flashback, it was revealed that the world government knew from the very beginning that white lead was poisonous. Not only did they know, but they also participated in the shipping and selling of that very same white lead. And can you guess what they did after it was revealed white lead was poisonous this whole time? They sanctioned a quarantine on the whole island and spread misinformation that white lead was contagious, when in reality it was revealed by Law's dad that it wasn't contagious at all. What precedes this blockade and misinformation is one of the most cruel things we've ever seen in the story. See, in an effort to contain the quote-unquote contagious disease, government allied countries went to war with Flevance and committed mass genocide on the whole town, leaving no one alive. Through misinformation, neglect, and a pure disregard for humanity, the world government set the stage for the complete annihilation of a country which they themselves used for profit. You see, Flevance is yet another example of the world government committing genocide on a whole island, just like they did with O'Hara. But this time they didn't use a buster call, they used fear-mongering and control of information. This puts into perspective how much of a threat a world government can be if they simply chose to neglect their people. This level of injustice is very important because it will go on to shape Law's character as someone who understands the true power of the world government. See, the true power of the world government is not the Navy or any buster call, it's control of information. See, the world government knew white lead was poisonous, but they chose to withhold that information because they knew they could profit from this town selling it all over the world. They knew white lead disease was contagious, but they chose to not disclaim that information. It was the control of information and the manipulation of truth that led to the Flevance genocide. This is the world government's true power because the tongue is the most powerful weapon, and he who controls the narratives controls the world. We can actually observe this in our own world, where our governments omit or disseminate information to the public as they see fit to align with the agendas of a few, whether it be the whole truth or very far from the truth. But why does this all matter? Well, it explains a very important question. The question of, if Law was a revolutionary this whole time, why has he kept it a secret? Well, he's kept it a secret because the world government can't control information they don't know. Think about how much false propaganda the world government has around, especially on the Revolutionary Army. They had the audacity to call our lovable Kuma a tyrant. They framed King Cobra's death on Sabo, and they called the leader of the revolutionaries the worst criminal in history. This is why it's very important that Dragon would have undercover revolutionaries who the government can't spread lies about. This is where someone like Law comes in. The government destroyed Law's town with misinformation, so Law's mission is to return the favor and misinform them along the way, and so he did. While posing as a simple pirate, he has secretly been laying out the groundwork for Dragon to dismantle the world government when the time comes. But more on that later, because I understand that some of you may be thinking, okay, sure, Law has been antagonized by the world government, but who hasn't? Being screwed over by the world government is not new, and it doesn't mean everyone who's been through it is a revolutionary. Well, what if I told you that there is an undeniable connection between Monkey D. Dragon and Law that proves he is indeed a revolutionary, or at least connects them to the Revolutionary Army? Listen closely because this detail will blow your mind. See, it all goes back to Flevance. Flevance, after the white lead disaster, became an all-white town. But where else have we heard about an all-white town in the story? Let me refresh your memory. In chapter 803, we found out that Burgess has discovered the Revolutionary Army's base. As he's describing the base, listen closely to what he says. As Lafitte asks him, "Where are you?" Burgess replies and says, "I'm in a white place, an island in all white." Now, I'm not suggesting that these two islands are the same because Dragon's Island is called Baltigo, but what I am suggesting is that these two islands may have both been stricken by white lead disease, especially since we know the world government helped transport white lead all over the world. If it is the case that Baltigo also suffered from white lead disease, I find it quite interesting that Dragon would choose this as his main base. What it may tell us is that Dragon is aware of the horror of white lead and what it has done to Flevance, and he may have set Baltigo as his base so that he always remembers the horror of the world government. This is even more interesting once we factor in Jenny's backstory. We learned that Jenny had a terminal disease before she died that was most likely given to her by a celestial dragon. This detail sets a direct link between the Revolutionary Army and the horrors of disease. This may also set up the possibility that the world government has always used biological warfare to antagonize opposition. So likely, Dragon is well aware of the importance of combating diseases such as blue scale or white lead. We also learned through Kuma's flashback that Dragon was helping Kuma find a cure for Bonnie by searching for doctors all over the world. Bonnie is now around 10 or 12 years old, so this would be around 8 or 10 years ago. 8 or 10 years ago, a 24-year-old Law was likely maybe 14 or 16 years old, and at that time he already had the Opi no Mi, and most likely he already became a fully fledged doctor given his training in Flevance with his father. When you consider that Dragon was looking for doctors all over the world, we can imagine that he encountered Law at some point after finding leads about a young boy who can perform medical miracles, and this makes it all the more likely that Dragon most definitely may have met Law and invited him to be a revolutionary. And once Law found out that Dragon's base is Baltigo and also suffered through white lead that Dragon is actively combating, he would know that Dragon is somebody that shares his goals and moral compasses as a doctor and as someone who wants to fight against the world government. I hope it's all starting to come together now. I believe, based on the evidence I presented, that Law from the very beginning of his introduction was already an undercover revolutionary, which explains all the things I've mentioned at the start of the video. See, he saved Luffy from Marineford on Dragon's orders out of his desire to protect his son. He also accompanied Luffy throughout the whole New World for the very same reason. See, if this theory is true, it would suggest that Dragon is not a deadbeat dad at all, and he has been using Law as a medium to protect and help Luffy on his journey throughout the whole New World. But speaking of Luffy and Law's alliances, it's important that I highlight why exactly was Law helping Luffy in his quest to destroy the Yonko. I can imagine this would be a source of confusion here, because if he was a revolutionary, why not just directly sabotage the world government, right? What would Law as a revolutionary gain from taking down Big Mom and Kaido? To understand this, we must analyze the true extent of the world government and what makes them so dangerous. What makes the world government so dangerous is that their power extends well beyond the Navy, as I've said. Their power is in how they control every single aspect of the whole world. They even control aspects of the underworld. If you remember, Mother Caramel was a child trafficking leader in the underworld that made a living selling children to the world government to be their weapons. She had plans to do this very same thing with Big Mom until things happened, cannibalistic thing. But anyways, why does this matter? See, once we observe a Yonko like Big Mom and her upbringing directly correlating with the world government, we understand something very important. The Yonko are a production of the world government itself, in the very same way that the warlords were. Consider that even Kaido was used by the world government to be experimented on. In Kaido's flashback, we learned that his king sold him to the world government when he was no longer useful. Even Shanks has a direct tie to being a production of the world government if you buy into the idea that Shanks is a member of the Figureland family. But we should have known that the Yonko served the world government when we saw Shanks basically bowing down to the Gorosei. See, what I'm saying here is that the Yonko are just another chess piece in the world government, complete and utter control of the world. They allow the Yonko to exist and reign free because it creates balance around the world, as long as they don't work together. Now, this is the point that is the most important here. The world government deeply fears any Yonkos combining together because they would rather have them separate so that they remain just a good piece of their puzzle. We've seen with just Shanks and Whitebeard meeting that the world government worried, and they almost had a close call when Big Mom and Kaido were about to ally. But ultimately, the world government is sure of themselves because they know that the previous Yonko would never work together. They understand that even if Kaido and Big Mom say they are allied, they know their own egos would not allow one another to make it work. Besides, these two Yonkos were already on a crew, and we all saw how that panned out. So effectively, Yonkos like Big Mom, Kaido, and Blackbeard would compete with each other and destroy each other's forces long before they came after the world government. And if anything, they are just perpetuating the same injustices that the world government is perpetuating. So they are basically unknowingly participants in the world government's plan. Okay, back to why this is important for Law as a revolutionary to help Luffy take them down. We must understand that the goal of the Revolutionary Army is not to simply defeat the Marines. If it was that, they would come to third party against the Marines at Marineford and help Whitebeard defeat them, but they did not. The goal of the Revolutionary Army is to take down the figures at the very top of this world that are using their power to put down the common people, such as the Celestial Dragons. But even if the Revolutionary Army took down the Celestial Dragons, would this decrease the overall tyranny around the world? Maybe, but not by much. Not by much if there are Yonko like Big Mom or Kaido who just uses this as an opportunity to just replace the world government as the ultimate power. It would simply be a change in regime and not a systemic change for the whole world. See, even if the Revs won the war, what would stop a Yonko like Blackbeard from coming and defeating the tired and worn out winner? What would stop someone like Kaido from joining the world simply because they enjoy chaos? Nothing would stop them. And I take it a step further and say this would be the exact opportunity the Yonko would be waiting for. See, to lead a true revolution that would change the world, the Revolutionary Army must first dismantle the whole system that the world government has created. And that system also includes the Yonko. See, the Yonkos serve effectively as a buffer before anyone could even get to the world government and actually make real change. This is all the reason why Law's overall mission as an undercover revolutionary was to help Luffy take down the Yonko, because they would be a chaotic and troublesome factor for the Rev Army if they ever had an all-out war with the world government. But if you think this is far-fetched, just consider that a Yonko like Blackbeard was the first ever to directly attack the base of the Revolutionary Army simply for their own personal gain. So not CP0 and not the Marines, it was a Yonko that antagonized the Revolutionary Army to the point that Dragon had to move his whole base, which shows exactly why the Yonkos are a direct enemy to Dragon and the Revolutionary Army, which is why Law had to help take them down. Now consider this: with the defeat of the most heinous Yonko in Big Mom and Kaido, they were replaced by the most non-threatening Yonko to Dragon's plans, Luffy and Buggy. Now all there's left is Shanks and Blackbeard. I for one think that Dragon and Shanks are working together. I believe that part of their plan may be to replace the chaotic Yonko with the Yonkos that are more favorable to their cause. But if you want more on that, check out Vinland's theory on how Shanks and Dragon may have been working together from the very beginning, link in the description. Okay, now this theory is going into hyperdrive, so try to keep up. Let's go over what I presented so far. Number 1, Law is an undercover member of the Revolutionary Army. Number 2, Law's mission is to defeat the Yonko because there are chess pieces in the world government's control. Number 3, Dragon's plan is to replace the chaotic Yonko with the Yonko that will help his cause or is non-threatening to his cause, and Shanks may be in on it. Okay, let's dive a bit deeper, but don't forget to click that like button if you're liking what you're hearing so far. Okay, let's dive back in. What's important to note here is that Law's job isn't done. See, there is one more chaotic Yonko left unchecked. The very same Yonko who directly attacked the Revolutionary Army, Blackbeard. This would make Blackbeard the last Yonko on Law's mission to defeat to complete Dragon's plan. But even if this was true, this seems like too much of a tall task for Law to do on his own, as we can clearly tell in their recent encounter. Law's encounter with Blackbeard has left him and Beppo stranded and defeated in the middle of the sea. Has Law failed his mission, or is this all going according to his plan? And what I mean by his plans, I don't mean Law, I mean Dragon. See, Law never fights alone. Actually, throughout the whole New World, he's defeated impossible opponents with the help of a monkey D. So can history repeat itself? Who can possibly save Law now, especially when he's drowning in the middle of the sea? See, to understand Law's situation and who's going to save him, we must understand how he ended up here. All the way back in Wano, Law chose this route that led him on the route toward Hachinosu. This was not a random choice because every move Law makes is calculated long beforehand. He knew he would be heading towards Blackbeard, and I'm sure he already had a plan. But Law makes no plans with him as the main star. Law is ultimately a support type character, usually choosing to fight opponents 2v1. But who could he possibly rely on to help him in a fight with Blackbeard? What if I told you that Law is relying on another Monkey D to show up and help him? That's right, I'm insinuating that Law will be saved by Monkey D Dragon, his revolutionary leader. But okay, you think I'm just waffling at this point, right? Besides, we have no evidence to support this even if Law was revolutionary. Why would Dragon just randomly show up to help him? Besides, how would Dragon help Law as he's drowning deep in the sea? Especially if you consider that Dragon may have a devil fruit himself. He may end up drowning, right? Logically speaking, the only way Law can be saved right now is if someone can get him out of the water, like maybe through a whirlpool or something. Wait, whirlpool? We just learned recently through the Blackbeard pirates that the man with the burn mark can create whirlpools in the water. What if the man with the burn mark saves Law? Wait, that can't be right, because my theory is that Dragon will save Law. Unless you have unlocked a bonus theory. Unless Dragon was the man marked by flames. Think about it, he fits the description perfectly. 1. Someone with a pitch black ship. In chapter 1099, it was confirmed that Dragon does have indeed a pitch black dragon ship. Number 2, someone that has a devil fruit power that can create whirlpools. Whirlpools can be created with a wind related devil fruit, which we all speculate that Dragon has. And number 3, someone that may be a world government man. See, this one seems to throw away Dragon as a candidate until we get confirmation in chapter 1100 that Dragon was previously a marine. Remember how I said this theory would enter hyperdrive? I bet you didn't think that you would get a Dragon marked by flames theory in tandem with the Law revolutionary theory, but it all ties together. Now, the final icing on the cake that undoubtedly confirms that Dragon is the man marked by flames is actually Law. See, the very first time that the man marked by flames was mentioned was when Law was picking his route. In chapter 1056, when the man marked by flames was mentioned, we get a very interesting panel of Law looking eerily suspicious, as if he knows exactly who the man marked by flames is. I'm actually suggesting that he knows exactly who the man marked by flames is, because he knows that it is the leader of the revolutionaries and his direct commander, Monkey D Dragon. What adds another layer of credibility to this is Luffy and Robin's reaction. In that same paneling, we get their reaction and we see Robin has a questioning look, and we see Luffy completely clueless as always. I believe this paneling is Oda's way of setting up a link between the man marked by flames and Robin and Luffy. And we know Robin spent 2 years with the revolutionaries, and of course Dragon is Luffy's dad. I'm unsure if Robin knows Dragon is the man marked by flames, but I'm sure she has a clue as always. Now stick with me just a bit further as I introduce what may possibly be the most controversial part of this theory, and I know it's been crazy so far, so that's saying something. See, if Dragon came to save Law, would he not then encounter Blackbeard? what happens then? Well, let's consider what Law's mission was again as a revolutionary. It was to take down the troublesome Yonko, right? But there's another part of this plan that makes it so much more important. You see, the world government feared the Yonko ever teaming up because they know their combined forces would be a legitimate threat to usurp the world government. But notice how Law's mission is to only help get rid of the troublesome Yonko, not Yonko like Shanks, Buggy, or Luffy. The reason why will blow your mind. You see, Dragon's ultimate plan is to galvanize all of the Yonko that he has relationships with to go against the world government. If he and Shanks are working together, then Shanks is already on board. If Shanks is on board, then it's likely that he can convince his childhood friend in Buggy and his rival in Mihawk to be on board as well. The chances are very, very high. So Dragon would get Shanks and Buggy and Mihawk effectively on his side. Now Luffy is an easy one. Damn sure if Shanks and Dragon are in on it, Luffy will be in on it as well. Luffy has already declared war on the world government anyway, so it fits. So imagine a combined coalition between Dragon and Shanks, Cross Guild and the Straw Hat Pirates directly going against the world government. But even that's not enough if there's still a rogue Yonko on the loose. And this is where Law's final mission to defeat Blackbeard becomes very important. Because what happens if Law defeats Blackbeard? If Law defeats Blackbeard, he gets the Yonko status. If Law is a Yonko, then he will be obviously against the world government with Dragon. See, the completion of Law's mission will be effectively giving Dragon his dream revolutionary army coalition, which would raise the success of the revolution tenfold. You may think I'm just talking nonsense here, because Law could never defeat Blackbeard, right? Because Blackbeard is way too strong and way too important to the narrative. He can't possibly lose, right? Well, if there's anyone he can lose to, it would be Dragon, as many speculate him to be the very strongest in the verse. This likelihood becomes even more possible if Law can help in the fight with Dragon as well. See what I'm getting at here? If Dragon encounters Blackbeard, his ultimate mission will be to defeat him and his crew with the help of Law. Now, whether Dragon can defeat Blackbeard is a whole nother question. Please let me know in the comments, do you think Dragon can defeat Blackbeard? But consider this, Blackbeard is the first to directly attack the Revolutionary Army's base. How crazy and internet breaking would it be if Dragon returns the favor and defeat Blackbeard at Winter's Island for his ultimate get back? I understand that this will be the most controversial part of this theory because many of us consider Blackbeard to be the in-game villain, and we apply a lot of plot armor to that status. But I think it would help to change your perspective on Blackbeard being simply an in-game villain. I actually believe that Blackbeard is too much of a great character to simply be a villain. I think the better word to use here for Blackbeard is antagonist. See, an antagonist is the foil to the protagonist. An antagonist challenges the morality of the protagonist and gives the audience a different perspective, while a villain is much more diabolical in their opposition to the protagonist. An in-game villain would be more like Emu. An antagonist like Blackbeard does not have the plot armor that someone like Emu would have. Heck, not even Luffy had the plot armor since he got defeated at Sabaody. I see Blackbeard and Luffy's relationship as more similar to Shigaraki and Deku from My Hero Academia. Although they are the protagonist and antagonist of their story, they are not the strongest in their verse, and either one of them can suffer losses and come back to fight another day. In the very same sense, I believe Blackbeard will be defeated to come back to fight Luffy another day, perhaps much stronger as well. But for now, especially in the final saga, no one is safe, especially from someone as strong as Dragon. I know this part of the theory will be hard to swallow, but remember, Emu is the main villain. Everyone else is fair game to be defeated long before Emu does. And damn sure, if Dragon can even challenge Emu, he damn sure can defeat Blackbeard. But anyways, the defeat of Blackbeard will effectively complete Dragon's plan of setting up the chessboard to defeat the world government once and for all. And what better way is there to introduce that Emu is the in-game villain other than the defeat of Blackbeard, who most consider to be the in-game villain. So I'm convinced that Dragon will give Blackbeard his first defeat and instate Law as the next Yonko, thus completing Law's undercover revolutionary mission. And the final icing on the cake for Law is that he will be amongst Luffy as an Emperor of the Seas. And with that status, his completed mission will be the catalyst towards starting the greatest revolution in One Piece history. And we never saw it coming, because real G's move in silence. Shout out Corazon. That's the theory, guys. I know that was a long one, but I hope it was a fun one. I'm very convinced this is true, and the event I presented to reveal this will also happen. But even if it wasn't, I hope you enjoyed this theory as always. Hopefully, I've been able to shed some light on Law's future role in the story, as well as Dragon's future role in the story. Besides, 2024 is the year of the dragon, so Oda has a lot in store for Mr. Top 1 and the Revolutionary Army as a whole this year. So what better way to start the new year other than a revolutionary theory? Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to look forward to the greatest One Piece theories of all time.